Across the vastness of space, a threat emerged from the dark void, an unstoppable force moving toward Earth at breakneck speed. No one saw it coming. No one could have predicted it. The Cybrix. The name sent whispers across the stars, a species with technology far beyond anything humanity had ever imagined. And now they were coming for Earth. Earth had long been considered insignificant by the wider galaxy, just another dot on the map, easily overlooked. But the Cybrix had different plans. Their fleet was massive, each ship a towering structure of metal and power. As they entered the orbit of the outer solar system, the first signs of the invasion began to show up. On Earth's radar alarms blared across every military base, every government facility, every major city. The world went into a panic. With every passing minute, the Cybrix fleet drew closer and closer to Earth. The world scrambled to prepare, but they had nothing that could even come close to matching the might of the invaders. Earth's military forces were outclassed, outgunned, and completely outmatched. Fighter jets and missile launches were futile against the incoming ships, their weapons unable to break through the Cybrix advanced shields. The Cybrix moved relentlessly forward. Nothing could stop them. Nothing could slow them down. With every passing second, Earth came closer and closer to destruction. Nations made desperate plans, but their leaders knew deep down that Earth had already lost the war before it even began. Across the world, cities began to shut down. Massive evacuation protocols were set into motion, but there was no escape from the inevitable death that loomed above. Everyone knew this would be the end. It was only a matter of time before the Cybrix arrived to burn the Earth to nothing. The countdown to annihilation had begun. But just as all hope seemed lost, something changed. Something unexpected happened. A sudden burst of light flared across the sky. It was so bright that it momentarily blinded the military satellites across the globe. Then a figure appeared, not a ship, not a weapon, but a being standing in the atmosphere of Earth, staring down at the alien invaders as though it was challenging them. No one knew who or what it was, but the figure radiated an aura of power so intense it was as if the very fabric of space had bent around them. The Cybrix fleet hesitated for the first time. They didn't fire, they didn't attack, they simply paused, watching this new presence in silence. The mysterious figure then raised its hand, and in an instant the sky was filled with more beings just like it all across the globe. They appeared not in ships, not in flying machines, but walking upon the Earth as if they belonged there, as if they had always been here, yet never seen before. The protectors of Earth had arrived to face the invaders, and for the first time since the Cybrix arrived, the world had a chance, a slim one, but a chance nonetheless. And as humanity held its breath, the mysterious beings made their move, standing between the planet and the alien invaders like guardians of old. The air was thick with tension as the strange beings floated down to Earth. They moved like shadows in the sky, graceful and effortless, as if they had no need for wings, yet they seemed to glide from place to place without touching the ground. Their arrival did not make a sound, no crash, no explosion, just a subtle hum in the air. The first of the protectors landed in Times Square, New York City, and as their feet touched the pavement, the entire world seemed to stop. The bustling crowds, the traffic, the flashing lights, everything went still as people stared in awe at the beings before them. Their bodies were human, but their eyes glowed with an unearthly light. Their features were calm and serene, but there was an undeniable power radiating from them. They weren't just human. They were something more, something ancient, something that had been hidden for eons. The Cybrix ships hovered ominously above, but they did not attack. They were waiting, watching, studying the new arrivals. The protectors did not speak at first. They only observed their surroundings, taking in the chaos and confusion below before turning their attention to the sky. Their movements were deliberate, every step filled with purpose. Then, with a sudden burst of energy, one of the protectors raised their hand to the sky, and the atmosphere seemed to bend around them. In an instant, a barrage of alien missiles descended upon the city, but they never reached their target. Instead, they shattered in midair, disintegrating into nothingness, like fragile glass, broken by an invisible force. The crowd gasped in unison. As the missiles evaporated into thin air, the Cybrix fleet had fired and their weapons had failed. There was no explosion, no destruction, just the empty remnants of their failed attempt to destroy these beings. In response, the Cybrix ships began to move. The first wave of invaders dropped from the skies, but the protectors were ready with swift and precise movements. They unleashed bursts of energy that sent the alien soldiers flying backwards with each strike. The Cybrics recoiled, unsure of how to deal with the overwhelming power of these humans. They attacked in waves, but the protectors never faltered. They moved in perfect unison, each strike calculated and devastating. The Cybrics were no longer the unstoppable force they had once been. The protectors fought with a grace and power that seemed to defy all logic. Every move they made was both a defense and an offense at once, never leaving themselves exposed, always staying one step ahead of the invaders. The Cybrics commanders ordered their troops to retreat for the moment, but they were not cowards. They were calculating, and they would be back. They would adapt, they would learn, and they would strike harder. But the protectors had already shown them something they had never seen before. The Cybrics were not invincible, and Earth was not defenseless. The protectors stood in silence for a moment after the battle had ended, as if they were waiting for something. Then one of them spoke. Their voice resonated in the minds of everyone on Earth. "The time has come," they said. "Humanity's true path begins now." This was not just a defense. This was the beginning of something much greater, a new chapter for Earth and the human race. The protectors had arrived to not just fight for Earth, but to awaken something within humanity, something that had long been dormant, and the world would never be the same again. As the battle ended and the skies began to clear, the world, still in shock, looked up at the protectors with a mix of awe and confusion. No one truly understood who or what they were. The protectors had shown their power, but offered no explanation, only silence, as they stood there, their eyes scanning the horizon, as though waiting for something. But what were they waiting for? Humanity had seen their strength, but now they needed answers. The world's leaders convened in secret meetings. Governments scrambled to make sense of the events that had unfolded, but nothing made sense. Nothing could explain the incredible power these beings possessed. Then Jonathan Cade stepped forward, a man unlike any other. He had the same calm presence as the protectors, but there was something else about him, something different. As he addressed the leaders of the world, his voice was steady, his words carrying a weight that demanded attention. "I am Jonathan Cade," he began, "and we are your descendants." The words sent ripples through the room. The leaders of the world stared at him in disbelief. Descendants? How could that be possible? They were human, they looked like humans, but they were more than just that. Dr. Cade spoke again in a voice that carried through the minds of every person present. "We are humanity's future, a future that was hidden for millennia to protect you from those who fear what you could become." He continued, his words echoing in the minds of the world. The protectors were not from another planet. They were humans from Earth, but they were not from the present. They had existed in the future, a future where humanity had unlocked its full potential, but that potential had come at a cost. The Cybrics had once been an ally of Earth long ago, a species who had shared knowledge and resources with humanity, but they had grown fearful of Earth's rise to power, of what humanity could become. They saw humans not as equals, but as a threat to their own dominance, and so they made a decision. They would suppress humanity's evolution and ensure that the human race would never rise beyond its current limitations. But there were those who resisted. The protectors were a product of that resistance, a small group of humans who had managed to transcend their limitations and push beyond the boundaries of what the Cybrics had deemed acceptable. They had been hidden from the rest of the world in secret cities deep beneath the Earth's surface, their existence unknown to the masses. They had watched humanity struggle and suffer under the Cybrics' reign, but they had remained in the shadows, waiting for the right moment to reveal themselves. And now that moment had come. Dr. Cade explained that the Cybrics were not just invaders, they were destroyers bent on keeping Earth subjugated. In their twisted vision of galactic order, the protectors had been sent back in time to ensure that humanity would never fall victim to the Cybrics again, to protect the planet and awaken the latent power within every human being. But there was more, a final revelation that would change everything. The protectors were not the only ones. The true battle had yet to begin. For the Cybrics were not just coming to Earth to conquer it. They had a plan, something much more devastating than anyone had realized, and the Protectors knew that the war was only just starting. This was not the end, it was the beginning of a fight that would decide the fate of Earth and all of humanity. The world was still reeling from the revelation that humanity's future had already been written, and that their Protectors had come from a time where they were stronger and wiser than they could ever imagine. The truth was out, and it hung heavily in the air like a storm waiting to break. But just as humanity began to process the enormity of what had been shared, the Cybrics moved again with brutal force. They did not waste time after the initial defeat. Instead, they gathered their strength. Their tactics were ruthless and precise. They launched waves of warships into Earth's atmosphere, not just to attack, but to annihilate every trace of resistance in their way this time. The Cybrics had no intention of holding back. Their fleet was bigger and their weapons far more advanced than anyone could fathom. Earth's defenses were hopeless against them. Earth's military forces scrambled to mount some kind of defense, but it was clear they stood no chance against the sheer power of the Cybric ships. The aliens were not just conquerors, they were predators driven by a single goal: to suppress and enslave Earth and every other species they had ever encountered on their path to dominance. They had learned from their previous mistakes, and this time they would not falter. They would destroy the Protectors and humanity along with them. Before the world even had a chance to realize what was happening, the first wave of Cybric soldiers landed on Earth's surface, their boots crushing the ground with an unnatural force. They were no longer just observers. They were here to end humanity once and for all. The Protectors wasted no time stepping in to confront the invaders once again, but they were not prepared for the full extent of what the Cybrics had planned. The alien soldiers were more numerous, and their weapons more deadly. The battle quickly turned chaotic. Explosions rocked the ground, and the sky lit up with the fiery blasts of energy. The Protectors were powerful, but they could not fight the Cybrics alone. The world watched in terror as the Protectors fought with everything they had, but even their strength had its limits. The Cybrics had not only come to invade, they had come to break the will of humanity. The world's leaders watched in horror as entire cities were reduced to rubble, as the Cybrics pushed forward, relentlessly determined to wipe Earth from the face of the galaxy. The Protectors were able to hold them off, but just barely. They were outnumbered and outgunned, even as they fought to defend Earth. It became clear that the Cybrics had a deeper agenda than anyone realized. It wasn't just Earth they sought to dominate, it was humanity itself. The Protectors could not stop them on their own barricade, and the leaders of Earth realized that their only hope lay in awakening the true potential of humanity and bringing it to the battlefield. Every person on Earth had latent abilities waiting to be unlocked. The Protectors had only shown a glimpse of what was possible, and now they would have to push humanity to its limits. The battle for Earth was no longer just about survival. It was about fighting for the very soul of the human race. Humanity had always been underestimated, but now was the time to prove that no matter the odds, no matter the invader, Earth's people would never bow to those who sought to destroy them. The world united like never before as every human became a soldier in the fight for their future. The Cybrics were about to learn that humanity's greatest weapon was its determination and its will to fight for its survival. As the Cybrics advanced and the Protectors fought tirelessly to hold them back, Earth's leaders knew the time for waiting was over. Humanity had to rise to its full potential if they had any hope of surviving this war. The Protectors had given them a glimpse of what was possible, but it was not enough. The time had come for every person on Earth to awaken the dormant abilities within them. A wave of unity spread across the globe as the Protectors began to teach the masses not just how to fight, but how to unlock the hidden power that lay within every human being. Cities became training grounds as ordinary people began to tap into abilities they had never dreamed of, powers beyond anything they had imagined. Telekinesis, the ability to manipulate the elements, enhanced reflexes, superhuman strength. These were no longer just fantasies, they were becoming reality. The Protectors guided humanity in unlocking their latent abilities, showing them how to access the untapped potential that had been buried deep within for centuries. But not everyone was ready to embrace this power. Some resisted, unsure of their place in this new world, unsure of their capacity to rise to the challenge of defending Earth. As the first groups of civilians began to manifest their abilities, they were met With both awe and fear, their powers were raw and uncontrolled at first, but with guidance and discipline they learned to control them. Their confidence grew with every passing day as they trained and honed their newfound skills. Every nation began to contribute to the war effort as people from every walk of life took up arms or stood ready to defend their cities. The military worked alongside civilians in unprecedented ways as everyone fought for a common cause. This was no longer just a battle for Earth, it was a battle for the future of humanity itself. The Cybrics had underestimated humans, thinking them weak and easy to subjugate, but now they would learn the true strength of the human spirit. The world's leaders stood together and coordinated a series of global strikes against the Cybrics forces, launching assaults in every corner of the globe. But the Cybrics were not idle. They had been watching as humanity's powers grew, and they adapted quickly. Their forces responded with even more ferocity, and they began to deploy devastating new weapons. But the Protectors were not deterred with every new weapon. The Cybrics unleashed the Protectors, and humanity countered with their own innovations, creating new technologies and strategies that had never been seen before. Earth's forces began to push back with determination. Like never before, the Cybrics forces were forced to retreat from several key locations as humanity's united front began to take hold. But the fight was far from over. Each battle was more intense than the last, and the stakes grew higher with every passing day. The Cybrics were relentless in their pursuit of domination, but humanity was no longer the underdog. They had risen to the challenge and had begun to turn the tide of the war. The Protectors watched with pride as humanity's strength grew with each victory. They knew the battle was far from won, but they also knew that humanity had found its true purpose, its true power, and that together they would be unstoppable. Earth was no longer just a planet to be conquered, it was a force to be reckoned with, a force that would rise up and fight for its place in the universe. As humanity fought valiantly on the surface, the Protectors and Earth's leaders began to uncover a far more insidious threat buried deep beneath the planet's crust, hidden for millennia. An artifact of unimaginable power left behind by the Cybrics. Long ago, this artifact was not just any weapon, it was something far more dangerous, a device capable of manipulating time itself. And it was located deep within the Earth, a location so secret that even the Protectors had been unaware of its existence. Until now, the Cybrics had buried it long before their invasion, and for centuries it had remained dormant, waiting for the moment when it could be used to reshape the future, to erase humanity's progress before it ever truly began. Darvacade and his team of Protectors were the first to discover its existence. As they dug deep into the planet's crust, they found ancient inscriptions written in the language of the Cybrics, carvings that detailed the weapon's purpose and power. It was called the Kronos Engine, a device that could tear apart the fabric of time itself and alter the course of history in the Cybrics' favor. They had built it as a last-ditch effort to prevent humanity's rise to power, to ensure that Earth's people would never be able to threaten their reign. But they had never activated it. They had hidden it away, just in case humanity ever became a true threat. The Cybrics knew that the day would come when they would need to stop humanity from rising once and for all. And now that day had arrived. Darvacade knew that if the Kronos Engine was activated, it would undo everything humanity had fought for. It would erase the Protectors, the awakened powers of the human race, and everything they had built. Humanity would be nothing more than a memory, a civilization that never existed, and the Cybrics would once again control the galaxy with an iron fist. The team raced against time to find the artifact before the Cybrics could get to it. But the journey to the artifact's location was fraught with danger. The Cybrics had placed traps along the way, and the deeper the Protectors ventured, the more hostile the environment became. The air grew thick with toxins, the ground trembled with violent earthquakes, and the very walls of the caverns seemed to close in on them, as though the planet itself was trying to protect the artifact. They had to navigate through twisting tunnels and ancient chambers filled with the remnants of a forgotten war. But the closer they got to the artifact, the more they realized that the Cybrics had been preparing for this moment for centuries. They had not only hidden the Kronos Engine, but they had also set up a final defense to ensure that no one could ever get close to it. As the Protectors pressed on, they were ambushed by a new breed of Cybric soldiers, These were not the regular invaders they had fought before. These soldiers were enhanced, designed to survive the harshest conditions, and equipped with deadly weapons capable of cutting through the Protectors' defenses. But despite the odds, the Protectors fought on their strength and resolve unyielding. They knew that the fate of humanity rested on their shoulders, and they would not fail, no matter the cost. The battle beneath the earth grew fiercer with each passing moment as the Protectors fought tooth and nail against the enhanced Cyberx soldiers. Every step closer to the Cronus engine seemed to intensify the resistance. The Cyberx had left behind their weapons and tactics, growing more brutal and advanced, but the Protectors never wavered. With every wave of enemies, they pushed forward, their determination unwavering, knowing that humanity's survival depended on this mission. Deep in the caverns, the air grew colder, the walls slick with moisture. The ancient inscriptions on the walls seemed to glow faintly, as if guiding them toward their goal, but also warning them of the dangers ahead. They had no choice but to press on. The sound of footsteps echoed through the tunnels as Dr. Cade and his team made their way toward the heart of the Cyberx's secret weapon. As they neared the final chamber, the air itself seemed to hum with an unnatural energy. They could feel the Cronus engine's presence even before they saw it, a massive structure that stretched high into the cavernous ceiling. The device was unlike anything they had ever seen. It pulsed with dark energy. Its very existence seemed to bend the laws of physics around it, as though it was a rift in time itself. They could sense the power of it, its potential to change the course of history at the most fundamental level. But the closer they got, the more they realized the Cyberx had prepared for this moment long ago. Hidden within the shadows of the chamber were even more of the enhanced soldiers waiting for them. They had set the final trap, knowing that if the Protectors made it this far, they would have no choice but to fight to the death to reach the Cronus engine. The first wave of Cyberx soldiers emerged from the shadows, their eyes glowing with an eerie intensity, and their weapons gleaming in the dim light of the chamber. The Protectors prepared for battle, but it was clear this would be their toughest challenge. Yet as the fight erupted, the very ground shook beneath their feet, and the air was filled with the sounds of energy blasts and clashing forces, each blow from the Cyberx soldiers sending shockwaves through the chamber. But the Protectors fought on, knowing they had no choice. If they failed, humanity's future would be wiped away. In an instant, suddenly from the shadows, a new figure appeared, a Cyberx commander, more powerful than any they had faced before, towering over them and exuding an aura of pure malice. This commander was unlike any other they had encountered. Its eyes glowed brighter than the others, its armor sleek and deadly. It moved with terrifying speed and precision, each strike seemingly more calculated than the last. The Protectors fought with everything they had, but it was clear they were being pushed to their limits. The commander was not just stronger, but smarter. It anticipated their every move and countered with ruthless efficiency. As the Protectors struggled against the overwhelming force, the ground trembled and the Cronus engine began to hum louder, its dark energy surging as though responding to the chaos unfolding before it. Dr. Cade knew they had to act quickly, or all would be lost. He reached out to the Protectors with a mental command, a final order that would change everything. All at once they attacked the Cyberx commander together, their combined strength and focus overwhelming the creature as they used every ounce of their power to defeat it. With one final blast of energy, they shattered the commander's defenses and brought it to the ground. But the battle was not over. The Cronus engine continued to pulse and hum, as if it were alive, as if it was ready to fulfill its purpose. The Protectors turned their attention to the device. They knew they had to deactivate it before it was too late, but they also knew that doing so would require a sacrifice, one that might cost them everything. As the Protectors stood in the heart of the chamber, their eyes fixed on the Cronus engine, the pulsing energy seemed to call to them, beckoning them toward it with a voice that was not spoken but felt deep within their minds. They knew what had to be done. They knew the risks and the cost. Dr. Cade stepped forward, his mind racing with the weight of the decision ahead. There was no time left. They had to act now. If they wanted to save humanity, if they wanted to ensure that the Cyberx would not erase everything they had fought for. He could feel the energy emanating from the Cronus engine. Its power was both alluring and terrifying. He understood now what the Cyberx had built this machine, not just as a weapon, but as a means to rewrite history itself. They had planned to use it to prevent humanity from ever rising to power, to crush their potential before it could ever be realized. But they had failed. They had underestimated the resilience of Earth's people and the strength of the protectors. But now they had to make a final choice. The Kronos engine had to be destroyed, but doing so would not be simple. It would require a sacrifice of unimaginable proportions, one that would disrupt the very fabric of time and space itself. Dr. Cade turned to the protectors, his face grim and resolute. He knew what he had to do. The device had to be destroyed from within. Only by fusing their energies with it could they sever its connection to time itself. But to do so meant that the protectors would cease to exist. They would no longer be able to guide humanity or fight beside them. They would be erased from existence, as though they had never been. The decision was not an easy one, and as Dr. Cade looked around at his comrades, he saw the same understanding in their eyes. They had all made the same choice. They had accepted their fate for the greater good. Their mission was to protect humanity, and they would do so at any cost. Together, they moved toward the Kronos engine, their energies pulsing in harmony as they prepared to initiate the final sequence. But just before they activated it, Dr. Cade paused for a moment. He turned back to look at the surface of the Earth far above him. Knowing that the world was watching, knowing that humanity was depending on them to succeed, it was an overwhelming feeling. But it was also a reminder of why they had come, why they had fought for so long to protect the future of their world and their people. With one final command, they merged their energies with the Kronos engine, their bodies glowing with light as they sent a wave of power through the machine. In an instant, the chamber was filled with a blinding explosion of energy. The very fabric of reality trembled as time itself seemed to twist and warp. The cyborg ships above the planet faltered as the connection to the Kronos engine was severed. The weapon's power was destroyed. The cyborg's forces no longer had control over time, and their plans to erase humanity's future were shattered. But in the wake of the explosion, the protectors were gone. They had vanished, their presence erased from history. But their sacrifice had not been in vain. Humanity was free. The cyborgs were defeated and Earth's future was secured. But the legacy of the protectors lived on within every human being whose power had been awakened by their guidance. The world would rebuild, and as it did, humanity would continue to rise, reaching heights that the cyborgs had feared and ensuring that their future was written by their own hands.